And welcome back as we continue our questions on issues and answers, the candidates debate for Thunder Bay Rainy River. Our next question goes to the NDP representative, Ms. Yuksem Wan. Ms. Wan, one of the most commonly heard refrains during this campaign centers around rising concern over affordability. Young people in particular say their dreams of home ownership are now very much in doubt, but people of all ages are affected. What steps would you advocate to make essentials in this country more affordable?
Well, I think we've seen, and I've seen at the doors, and I've seen in all the communities that I've been, that affordability is one of the things that not only young people, but also seniors and the middle class families are addressing and finding that everything is further and further out of reach. So we have things for housing that we want to do, where we want to build 500,000 new homes that are affordable. That includes rental properties, that includes co-op housing, it includes long-term care. Making sure that people have a home is the basic building block to be able to then be able to take part in the economy and make sure that they can get ahead. The other thing that we want to do really is to make sure that there's transportation, that there's a cap on cell phones, really being able to address the needs of Northwestern Ontario. And I think for affordability, one of the main things is implementing pharmacare, where we are able to then make sure that you're not using your credit card to get the medication and to be healthy, that it really is something that's available to all Canadians.
All right, let's open it up. Ms. Bottajong, to you.
Two of the most important things in our platform that I am very convinced would really help with affordability are the guaranteed livable income and our focus on pharmacare. As Yuksem was saying, pharmacare is really important, and it is one of those things that will help people that are not only really young, but also very old and everybody in between. With the guaranteed livable income, what that's really going to help is we're in a situation with employment where a lot of it is precarious. So people go from contract to contract to contract, and we have lulls in employment. So we do currently have different programs that are there to help, but they don't necessarily give people the dignity that they deserve when they're experiencing these times. So with that as well, we're also going to implement the Canadian Council of Governance. So what that will do is it'll allow conversations from all levels of government, so we can actually have the discussions for our communities to see where the holes are and what actually needs to have funding.
All right, Mr. Pawlowski.
So both the NDP and the Green promise great things. But the cost, and they've done it, the cost of the platform for the NDP is twice what our platform is. The cost of the Green platform is 4 times what ours is. And the question is, can they afford it? Now they both made proposals as to what to do with tax in order to generate the income, but it started off with the NDP. And the reality is the NDP didn't actually release the costing of their program until the day of the advance polls. And so they were given a failing mark by the University of Ottawa Institute of Fiscal Studies and Democracy for the fact that they waited to the last minute to even cost their programs. And then the Parliamentary Budgetary Office costed, like, okay, they didn't have time to actually cost all the programs, but how are they going to pay for it? So the Parliamentary Budgetary Office looked at how they said they were going to pay for it. 9 of the 13 new tax measures proposed by the NDP, they considered high uncertainty. And their bottom line with respect to the NDP was the NDP proposals involve significant change to the tax and spending structure of the federal government. Those objectives are very difficult to achieve without causing significant disruption to the economy.
All right, let's go to Ms. Ritholm.
The leader, Andrew Scheer, has announced that insulin should be provided for diabetes type 1 patients. And there are other cases like that, I'm sure, that most people would think is advised. However, we're not promising pharmacare for everybody. It is expensive. The Liberals have promised it before, 1997, 2004. It just didn't happen. We'd have to look at the numbers very carefully. Conservatives are good at looking at what is affordable, what is not. There is, though, going to be at least a 3% increase for health and social needs from Ottawa out to the provinces. And then mostly it's up to the individual provinces to decide how to spend that money for healthcare.
Anybody else want to weigh in on this?
You know what, the costing of the platform, and how we're going to pay for it, it's by having different priorities and making different choices, right? It's about not putting $4.5 billion into a pipeline. It's about not giving $12 million to Loblaws. It's about making people and communities at the heart of our decisions. So when we are proposing a wealth tax on the wealthiest 1%, that the Parliamentary Budget Office said will pay for pharmacare. And those are the things that are important. It's by making those different choices. That's how the NDP will put people first.
I'm also really grateful that my Liberal friend here mentioned that the NDP and the Greens promise great things. And we do that because we listen to people and we actually look at what they need so that our communities can get ahead.
Mr. Pawlowski?
Well, there's choices and there's actualities. Yeah, okay, it would be a great idea. The NDP wants to bring in a lot of money from the super rich who park their money offshore in tax havens. And that's one of the, when they costed their actual budget and where they're going to get the money, a lot of it was from this source. Well, I absolutely agree, get the money from that source. But the reality, which the NDP doesn't seem to worry about too much, is the fact that historically it's been very difficult to get money from those kind of sources. That's why people put their money offshore, is because you can't get at it. The Panama Papers came out a few years ago, quite detailed as to who was hiding money where. How much did Revenue Canada get out of it? Not very much.
And
How much did Canadians get out of the province too, that we were going to have a balanced budget this year? Because it seems to me that this is also the next first past the post election.
You're bringing in a whole bunch, budget and stuff, you know, are we going there? I don't know.
And the other thing,
Well, you're the one discussing budgets.
Well, we're going off on different topics. I mean,
and one of the things about, yes, you've agreed, right? We have a great platform, that we have the ways that we are going to go after the tax havens, the loopholes, and the wealthiest, so that the rest of us can be healthy. And the thing is that you have to invest also in the public services and make sure that those who are going after those tax havens aren't underfunded resources, and that you have the proper funding for the people to go after them, not to let your friends have a free ride.
Well, I think the bottom line is, because the NDP and the Liberal may not be that different in terms of their social agenda, but at least we're realistic as to what we can and can't do. I don't think the NDP is. And
It's
the
too
cost
bad
may
you were
reflect
just
that.
a little
Ms.
bit more
Ridholm, you
honest.
wanted in here. Go
Thank
ahead,
you very
please.
much. I'm trying to be polite here. The fact of the matter is that pharmacare costs a lot of money. I'm going back to the question here. Pharmacare costs a lot of money. And no government has yet determined how we can do that for this whole country, for all meds, et cetera, et cetera. So I would be very, very leery as a voter of voting for any of the parties that promise it. It's been promised before. Promises were broken. Be very careful. If any voter thinks that, you know, they're going to get everything this time, it isn't going to happen.
Do you want
Candidates, I'm going to cut you off there because we are going long here. We're going to have to move to another question. And I want to just inform the control room, we're going to go a little over time on this one. This question goes to Ms. Montajong. There's widespread concern locally over the future of Thunder Bay's Bombardier plant. What do you think needs to be done to ensure the long-term viability of this important local employer?
One of the things that we really need to do is we really need to focus on how do we have those communications between the federal and the provincial governments, which has really been a long time problem. And I understand that there are different jurisdictions and these are laid out in the Constitution. But the Green Party is very, very focused on establishing the Council of Canadian Governments so that we can actually have these conversations going forward. In addition to that, our focus is on the transition to a green, sustainable economy. So we are going to bring in more jobs. Our focus is on sustainability. So these are jobs that will transition us into the green economy.
All right, Mr. Pawlowski.
My number one priority, if elected, is absolutely Bombardier. Unifor came out in his campaign for us. We had about 20 of them the other day. A shout out to the Unifor people. The fact that we don't have those contracts is a result of Ford and the Conservative government. The Liberal government has put through an integrated bilateral agreement with the government of Ontario, $7.5 billion are available for public transit vehicles. But the way it works is the province has to put in the proposal. Then it goes to the federal government and the money is there. The money has been there. We know that they're going to want those cars for the TTC, for Metrolinx, for GO Transit. They didn't put in the proposals. Now, why is that? I think because the Ford government saw some, in
Then
the
let's let
Conservatives
Ms.
saw some
Ridholm
political
respond to that,
advantage.
please. Ms. Ridholm.
Yeah. Doug Ford isn't running in this election. I hope everyone realizes that. For public transit, billions and billions of dollars are being spent in this country. At Federation of Canadian Municipalities, the National Board for City Councils, we urged a 50% Canadian content and jobs. However, that condition was not agreed to. So the company, Bombardier, went and got cheap products made, parts of the cars made in Mexico, and we know that that very definitely slowed down the production line here in Thunder Bay. There has to be at least a job condition, if not a Canadian content somehow condition in there. And it must be more high than 25 or 30%.
Going to Ms. Wong now.
You know.
Yeah, I agree with the Made in Canada. Jagmeet was here earlier this summer and said that the NDP will absolutely ensure that there's a Made in Canada component in the procurement process. One of the things that we saw, especially with the Liberal government, is that our public dollars, when it went for public transit, went to Germany and went to Siemens, when we have the best skilled workers and some of the best builders here in Canada. So I think that, you know, what the track record has shown, that there is the companies that are here and the workers, we just need to invest in
We're going to
Canada.
Ms. Madajong now.
One of the other records that we have in Thunder Bay is an inaccessibility issue, and the Green Party has always historically really fought very hard to get Via Rail back on track. So we're going to modernize Via Rail, expand service, and ensure transmodal connections across Canada for light rail and electric buses. So this is where the Bombardier jobs here specifically in Thunder Bay really come into play. And this is where we're going to continue to focus our resources.
Mr. Pulaski?
So two responses. One, Ford's not in this. Yeah, that's true, but a central part of this election is, do we want Scheer and Ford making the decisions for what happens in Ontario, whether it's respect to healthcare or whether it's respect to
And your other
employment
point,
and
sir.
labor?
We're short on time.
But
Your
I
other
think
point?
too, if
The
Okay.
combination of Trudeau and Ford is not working very well at all for transfer payments from Ottawa to our province. We are getting zero with the equalization payments, for example, from Trudeau.
And on that note, folks, we're going to wrap up this part of the program. We'll be back with more here on Issues and Answers, the candidates debate for Thunder Bay Rainy River, in just a moment.